Who doesn't want more free customers? Referrals are worth more than gold. They're low cost, low in the funnel, low effort to close. What's not to love? Are there actually any drawbacks to word of mouth? What do we do though when the leads start to dry up? Marketing and sales are full of myths, misconceptions, and sometimes removing risk from our best performing channel. Join us as we leave the echo chamber and rethink the importance of word of mouth.
Hello, and welcome to the Rethink Marketing Podcast, where we think critically about today's marketing advice. I'm Paul Frodge, joined by Mr. Marketing, and for today's conversation, the diviner of de-risking and delineation, Colin Jeffries. Colin, how are you?
Oh, Paul, I feel about as good as a marketer who has a nice reprieve from all the non-marketers telling them how to do their job. How are you?
I'm good, and I think marketers aren't the only ones that tell us how to do our jobs, are they?
No, not at all. It comes from everywhere, right? Accounting trying to get us more efficient, operations trying to make sure that we're driving higher quality leads, product telling us what new things we should go out and sell. So there's a lot of opinions, I think, for marketers out there.
And at home, is that what your wife calls you, as the diviner?
I wish when it came to parenting, if I could divine things, that would be really, really impactful, I think. Usually it's Monday morning quarterbacking myself versus being able to predict it in the future. But
that's great. All right. So today, what are we rethinking?
Today, we're really rethinking how we optimize word of mouth as a channel without becoming over-reliant on our good and happy clients sending more business our way. Paul, sometimes we can have too much of a good thing, and this is definitely true with word of mouth. Word of mouth is low cost. Typically, leads are low in the funnel. They're getting ready to close. And generally, there's a warm handoff from a happy customer. So word of mouth can be super powerful in a great way, maybe even the best way to grow our businesses. But what happens when our happy customers stop sending customers to us? Then what do we do if we don't have another channel? Unfortunately, oftentimes over-reliance on word of mouth can make us as marketers or as business growth leaders lazy, and we maybe don't optimize other channels. Or it can make us overspend on certain channels, thinking in the backs of our minds, hey, if I drive business from this very expensive channel, those people will be happy and then they'll refer other business to me. And we're sort of banking on future performance of clients we haven't even won yet. So the idea of today's episode is really just to step back and say, hey, how beneficial is word of mouth? How do I optimize that channel without getting lazy on other channels? And how do I make sure that I've de-risked my best performing channel and I'm not over-reliant on word of mouth? Paul, anything that you're rethinking that I didn't eat up with that giant monologue?
No, I think you did a good job. Yeah. In looking at referrals, it's great for most businesses to get referrals if it's the right referral, if it's the ideal customer that the business is looking for. Can be a real blessing in disguise, and when it comes. And you talk about not knowing when those referrals are going to come. Looking at many different businesses, many implement certain referral opportunities, whether it be a referral bonus or a referral fee. That word of mouth coming into the organization. Some people don't have a strategy, though. It just happens naturally, and it's unpredictable, as you mentioned.
That's exactly right. And I think for businesses that do rely on word of mouth, when they have some sort of incentive program, that's an option that they can ratchet up or ratchet down depending on how busy their teams are and those sorts of things. But if we don't have a specific word of mouth strategy, if we're just reliant on the good graces of our happy customers, there really isn't a way for us to say, hey, we're really busy. Let's remove that incentive or reduce that incentive. Or, man, we're not going to hit revenue this quarter. How do we increase that incentive? How do we drive some more word of mouth? Now, if word of mouth is only a small percentage or a reasonable percentage of our business, let's say 30 to 60%, then when we're a little bit slow, we can actually rely on our other digital marketing channels or BDR sales channels, whatever that is, to grow top line revenue. We're not just reliant on happy customers connecting us with other would-be customers.
Yeah, I think that it cannot be a forward approach to have that as your main source of opportunities, right? And looking at directories that you might be in, or that digital marketing that you might be doing, the overall marketing strategy for inbound and outbound, and looking at those referrals that come into your organization. Because of the unpredictability, it becomes gravy on top of everything else and all of your other exercises for driving revenue.
Yes, that's a great way to look at it. As a business leader, looking at predictable revenue and maybe even what the budget is, right? Hey, we expect to hit X number in annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue or even total annual revenue. Here's what we expect to hit. And the way we're going to do that is 95% through these different channels: directories, digital marketing, search engine optimization, content marketing, whatever it is, right? Things that we can invest more in and turn up. And we know based on a certain data set and all of our research and how long we've been doing marketing, hey, if I spend X number of dollars on this channel, it results in Y number of leads and my closing rate is X on those. And then here's what my average ticket size is. It's very algebraic. We can understand if we put this in the top of the funnel, we should get this on the bottom of the funnel. Referrals just don't work that way. I wish that they did. That'd be great. It'd be really easy. You go out, make customers happy, and then you can predict what you think you'll get in revenue on the back end based on how many referrals that you get per customer. That varies widely by industry, can even vary widely by customer. So for us to have a very predictable channel where, again, using algebra and using math, we can say, based on historical performance, when we input X, we get Y. That makes a ton of sense to rely on growing our business. And then I love the way you put it, Paul, that the referrals are just gravy on top of that.
Sure. And where are those referrals coming into play, right? Is it, if you're a small business, is it into the small business owner? Is it into certain sales people or higher level sales executives? Where are those referrals coming from? And I talk about it all the time with sales and organizations is how are you actually asking for those referrals? Are you top of mind and those customers of yours thinking of you as the first, best, and most often when it comes to whatever business sector that you're in? And are you going to be the first person that they do refer? Or is it going to be another vendor that they have? I hate using the word vendor, but is it somebody else that they're doing business with that they might refer more often? So how are those salespeople actually asking for those referrals? And are you going to be the first or one of many that they refer?
That's a great point too, because if they refer you and you alone, the closing rate, I'm sure, would be much higher than if they say, oh, here's a list of 3 or 4 people that we work with. You should chat with each of them. I do want to go back a little bit, Paul, to something that you just said, which is where are those leads coming in? And, if it's a small business owner, and I'm trying not to put you on the spot too much here, but you are CEO of an agency, which means you are focused or should be focused, I guess, on building culture and managing top line and managing bottom line. There are a lot of things that fall on your plate as CEO. You probably shouldn't be the one who is handling introductory calls and exploratory calls with potential new accounts. You should have a salesperson or a business development person that's probably doing that, right? And that should be the case with most small businesses is the CEO should be running the business and the sales team should be growing the business, arguably. But for historical customers where maybe they've grown up with the CEO or they know the CEO in some way or they're used to working directly with the CEO, when they make a referral, they don't want it referred to, Tom, the sales guy. They want them referred to Paul, the CEO, and they want that person handled with white glove service like they know that they get from you. And so if they're referring them right to the CEO, that can actually be a major drain on the organization. Not to say that referrals aren't valuable. At the right time, they definitely are. But that can actually be a challenge when the CEO is overwhelmed with, turnover or revenue management, or even I've seen CEOs where at the end of the year with annual reporting and those sorts of stuff for the board, they get a little bit underwater because there's so much stuff that they have to do. So a referral in early January might not be handled as well as a referral in, say, June.
That's a great point. And referrals come in often directly to me from happy customers. And I do start the conversation and I really enjoy that, my sales background and, looking at driving new business and new business development. But we do have new business developer, we have account executives and account directors that are actually handling the business. So what I'll oftentimes do is start the conversation and then bring in another individual on the sales team within the organization to be on that introductory call as well, and look at it that way as far as starting a conversation. So, with many different businesses that we work with, it works differently. The CEO will just kick it off to a sales team, and then you talk about white glove service. How does that actually come to fruition and that first call go if the CEO isn't on that first call? So, talking to certain clients and happy customers about how you would like those referrals to come into the organization properly so that the organization can actually provide that white glove service on that intro call is something of conversation.
Absolutely. I think that experience share is really valuable. And again, it comes back a little bit to having a plan for those referrals. Are you incentivizing customers when those come in? Do they know how to share them? Do they know who your ideal customer is? Is it an organization that looks exactly like them, that thinks like them, that spends money like them, that has a marketing strategy like them, or is it just someone else in a similar category? So there are a lot of different factors to consider when we're training, for lack of a better term, our happy customers on how to refer new customers to us. So we talked a little bit about happy customers making referrals. Let's swing the pendulum to the other side of the spectrum, if you will, and talk about how organizations, and I've seen this happen, unfortunately, with quite a few small organizations, is they're very reliant on referrals. And then one of their very happy customers who typically made a lot of referrals leaves for some reason. I've seen this happen via acquisition. The happy customer got acquired, and so they had another vendor set that they had to use, or the head of marketing leaves and another head of marketing comes in and they know an agency or a partner or whatever that they want to bring in. So what happens when that dries up? If we're over reliant, we get 95% of our business from referrals, and we lose a good customer who was referring business to us. That can be devastating from a revenue perspective, and it can lead to all sorts of negative things, right? Layoffs and all the stuff nobody wants to talk about. So, Paul, how do we backstop against that type of a loss or that type of a threat?
Yeah, looking at that, it's depending on that referrer, if that person was actually getting some sort of referral fee for those referrals, or if it was just out of the kindness of their heart that they were just happy with the service of that business and referring. So I actually have worked with other organizations in the past to try to build referral programs, and actually an individual that was looking at a referral app that was trying to be brought to market. So looking at that and trying to incentivize people proactively instead of always asking, hey, if you come across somebody that might be an ideal client for us, can you refer them? The day goes on, the weeks go on, the months go on, and then they forget, right? So incentivizing those types of referrals sometimes can lead to more referrals. But like we talked about earlier in the conversation, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be your top driver of business within the organization.
And I would argue, nor should it be your top driver. I think having a well-defined referral program makes a ton of sense. Again, because you can ratchet things up, you can ratchet things down. You can insulate yourself a little bit from some of the threat of having one good referring client leave if you have 20 good referring clients, right? But there's also an element of, again, depending on who your customers are and what their psychographics are and where they're spending time online and those sorts of things, we can use a lot of different marketing efforts, multi-channel marketing, to step in and say, hey, how do we offload some of this risk? How do we de-risk our reliance on word of mouth? And that should be something that's done holistically, recognizing if we have a well thought out, well executed word of mouth program, people that we're filling the funnel with that will ultimately become customers can qualify for that. And then they can start referring new customers to us. And yes, that maybe increases the amount that we're willing to spend on new customers, but I probably wouldn't count that in my total lifetime value of a customer. I don't build in something that says, and I anticipate X number of dollars or X number of new clients from this happy customer making referrals to me. I have seen businesses that do that because they think, hey, if we can fill the pipeline and we can make these people happy, they'll send more customers our way. That to me seems a little bit like counting your chickens before they hatch. But Paul, I feel like I'm going on a tangent here, so I'll throw it over to you for any other comments.
No, I think you got to look at your referrals and those that are coming in. Like you mentioned, if your largest referrer leaves and maybe goes to another organization or competitor, or just leaves their position within that company and is no longer that largest referrer, you almost need to look at that, the 80-20 rule, or looking at business. If you've got somebody that's generating 40% of your income from a sales perspective or revenue perspective, you also need to look at that from the referral side of things and be able to have maybe that not so disproportionate ratio with referrers, and try to build up those that, kind of look at the key accounts, super key accounts and things like that. Building those that might refer one time a year to 3 times a year. If that one that went away is referring 5 or 10 times a year, how do you get some of those other ones that are referring less often, so that if they do leave the organization or if those referrals dry up, you have some others that are referring as well?
That's a great point. Absolutely. Diversifying and increasing the frequency of referrals is absolutely key to make a word of mouth program work. So excellent points. Well, Paul, I've really enjoyed today's conversation talking about some of the benefits, huge benefits, but also some of the downsides of relying on word of mouth programs or relying on just unstructured word of mouth from happy customers. We've talked about being proactive. We talked about diversifying. We talked about multi-channel marketing. I feel like we covered a lot of things here to de-risk our business from an over-reliance on the good graces of our happy customers. Anything else you would say before we conclude today's episode?
No, I do believe that looking at if this is something that you want to do within your organization, or if it's been successful, continue to hammer on that and figure out better ways within the tool belt to make sure that those referrals are coming in. And those that aren't asking for referrals, as we talk about in sales all the time, why not? So I'll leave you with that.
Absolutely. Love it. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Rethink Marketing Podcast. Until next week, keep rethinking those common assumptions. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If people want to connect with us, where should they go, Paul?
RethinkMarketingPodcast.com, Colin. What can listeners do to help us in return for the sage marketing wisdom and our pithy humor?
They can help us by leaving a review on their favorite platform or sharing this episode with a fellow marketer to help them cut through the clutter.
Well, until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions.